During an excavation in Egypt, 16 severed human hands were discovered underground. But why were they all right hands? Why were no other parts of the bodies found? Why was a child buried in a grave in Europe with chains locked around it? And what secrets were hidden beneath the burning deserts of Saudi Arabia by people who once lived underground? Archaeologists have found things beneath the ground that have completely changed what we know about history. And today, we are going to talk about them. In 2012, a team of archaeologists was carefully carrying out an excavation at an ancient palace in Egypt. They were hoping to find old clay pots, ancient coins, or if they were lucky, maybe even some gold jewelry. During the excavation, one archaeologist who was removing a layer of soil with a brush suddenly stopped. He noticed a white-colored bone appearing from beneath the ground. The team immediately stopped their work. They carefully cleared the surrounding soil and discovered that there were 2 human hands buried there. Finding hands meant that the rest of the body was probably nearby. Thinking this, they continued digging in the area. While searching for the body, they discovered 3 large pits underground. These pits had been filled and sealed with soil. They thought they had finally found a grave, but they were wrong. The pits were not filled with 1 or 2 hands. They contained many human hands. In total, there were 16 of them. The strangest thing was that every single one of them was a right hand. Not a single left hand was found. The hands had been arranged in the ground in such a way that their fingers were pointing upward, almost as if they had been planted in the soil like seeds. The size of these hands also appeared much larger than the hands of an average person. It was clear that these were not hands from the modern era. It was obvious that they did not belong to ordinary people, but to very tall and strongly built men. The most disturbing part was that no other human body parts were found anywhere nearby. There were only 16 right hands buried in those dark pits for who knows how long. As soon as the news appeared on the internet, conspiracy theories began to spread. Some people claimed that it was a form of ancient black magic. Others said it was a portal to another world. Some theories even suggested that these hands had been placed there to please aliens. But the truth was far more brutal and surprisingly practical than all of these theories. When scientists carried out detailed laboratory tests and osteological analysis on the bones, they discovered that the remains were around 3,600 years old. They dated back to a time when this was the period when a group known as the Hyksos came to Egypt to take control of the region. It is believed that the Hyksos originally came from the area that is now modern-day Syria. They made Avaris their capital city, a place that is known today as Tel El Daba, near Cairo. Laboratory tests confirmed that all 16 hands belonged to different adult men who had died around the same period of time. 16 right hands, and all of them belonged to men. The answer to this mystery, which archaeologists were searching for beneath the ground, was actually found above the ground. About 500 kilometers south of Cairo, in Luxor, there is a temple called Habu. The walls of this temple are covered with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. In one section of the wall, archaeologists found an interesting image. A man is standing and supervising while 2 women point toward a pit in the ground. Inside that pit are many severed human right hands. Alongside the image were hieroglyphic writings. Their translation says, "The number of enemies killed was determined by counting their hands." The 16 hands discovered at the old palace in Tel El Daba belonged to the enemies of the Hyksos. In ancient Egypt, there were very strict rules during warfare. A soldier could not simply return from battle and claim victory. As proof, he had to bring back the right hand of an enemy. This was done so that the defeated enemy would never again be able to hold a sword or a spear. When a soldier returned from the battlefield, he presented this terrifying trophy before his king and then threw it into these pits. For every severed hand he brought back, the soldier was rewarded with gold. This reward was called the Gold of Valor, meaning gold given for bravery. It was a strange form of currency in ancient Egypt, a brutal but effective way of keeping track of how many enemies each soldier had defeated. Now let's talk about a mysterious chamber discovered underground near the pyramids. This story is not very old. In May 2024, a team of geophysicists was working on a flat and sandy area just outside the Giza pyramids. They were using machines called ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, to send signals beneath the ground. This instrument allows scientists to see several meters below the surface without digging. As the day was coming to an end, the team was preparing to switch off their GPR devices. Suddenly, a strange wave pattern appeared on their computer screens. They discovered an L-shaped tunnel several meters below the ground. The tunnel was about 10 meters long and up to 15 meters wide. However, it had been filled with sand and debris. The radar wave patterns clearly showed that the sand inside the L-shaped structure had been added later. The situation became even more serious when the radar detected a hollow cavity beneath the L-shaped tunnel that extended another 10 meters deeper underground. In simple words, it was an empty chamber, a secret room buried beneath thousands of tons of sand and soil. As soon as this news leaked and reached the internet, conspiracy theorists around the world started creating stories about it. Some claimed that the legendary Hall of Records had been discovered, a place where the knowledge and treasures of ancient lost civilizations were hidden. But to understand the truth, you first need to know how a GPR machine works. GPR sends radio waves into the ground and then calculates how long it takes for those waves to bounce back after hitting rocks or empty spaces. When experts carefully studied the data from these waves, they came to a very simple but brilliant conclusion. The strange L-shaped structure and the empty space were actually part of a very large trench that had later been filled with fine limestone and sand. Archaeologists believe that this L-shaped structure was originally a passage leading to the real tomb or a special chamber located below. In ancient Egypt, when an important official died, structures like these were often built above the tomb to protect what was buried underneath. The most unusual thing about this structure is that it was intentionally filled with sand. One possible reason is that it was done to protect the tomb from thieves, making robbers believe there was nothing there except sand and preventing them from reaching the actual burial site. Because this location is situated on the Giza Plateau near the pyramids, researchers also have another theory. They believe that thousands of years ago, when ancient engineers were building the pyramids, they may have used this large area as a stone quarry or as a route for transporting heavy stones to the pyramids. Once the pyramid was completed, those skilled architects cleaned up all traces of their construction work. They filled the large trench with sand and soil so that the area around the pyramid would appear completely flat and beautiful. The Giza Plateau is a sensitive site where physical excavation could damage valuable historical remains. That is why no type of excavation is allowed there. In August 2023, a team of archaeologists from Nicholas Copernicus University was carrying out excavations in a small village called Pień in Poland. The team was searching for a cemetery where people who had been rejected by society were buried in ancient times. During the excavation, one researcher noticed a small skull buried in the soil. At first, it seemed like an ordinary grave, but as the soil was cleared away, everyone present was shocked. The archaeologists discovered that a child's skeleton was lying in a very unusual position. The child's remains were buried face down in the grave. In ancient times, people did this because they believed that if the dead person came back to life, they would dig deeper into the ground instead of rising to the surface. The most frightening thing was a padlock attached to the child's legs. The lock was a symbol that the door to the world had been permanently closed for that little child. This discovery created headlines around the world. People started calling it the vampire child. But for researchers, the real question was something else. What had this innocent child done that made even his own people chain him up after death? Archaeologists and forensic experts spent months studying the skeleton. They carried out DNA testing and examined the structure of the bones. What they discovered was no less frightening than a horror movie. The investigation revealed that during the 1600s, Poland was going through a period known as the Vampire Panic. People believed that some individuals could return after death and drink the blood of their living family members. If a child behaved strangely or suffered from an illness, villagers often believed that the child was possessed by evil forces. Scientific research later proved that the child was not a victim of any supernatural curse. The child was actually suffering from tuberculosis or TB. The disease had made the child's body extremely weak and caused the skin to become pale. At that time, microscopes did not exist and people knew nothing about germs. Because of this, they mistook the child's pale appearance and unusual condition as signs of evil. Research also showed that the child's grave had been reopened after it was buried for the first time. The villagers became so frightened that although they had originally buried the child normally, they later dug up the grave, turned the body face down, and locked the legs with a padlock. They believed this would prevent evil from returning. In the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert lies a lava tube called Jersin, which has attracted worldwide attention because of its mysterious structure. A lava tube forms when a volcano erupts, and the outer layer of lava cools down and hardens into rock. However, molten lava continues flowing inside. When the volcanic activity ends and all the lava drains away, a hollow tunnel is left behind. It is very similar to a cave. Many lava tubes have been discovered in Saudi Arabia. But Jersin is the most famous of them all. Geologists first began studying it in the year 2000. However, the real surprise came when researchers from Griffith University and the Max Planck Institute recently decided to explore its depths. When the investigation team entered the dark tunnel, they were faced with a scene that left them stunned. Thousands of human bones were scattered inside. Among them were the skulls of men, women, and children. Not only were human bones found there, but researchers also discovered several sharp stone tools that may have been used for different purposes. When scientists performed radiocarbon dating on the soil attached to the bones and stone tools, they were amazed by the results. Some of the bones were more than 7,000 years old. The investigation also revealed that the lava tube was not simply a shelter. It was a strategic transit point. Ancient shepherds used it while moving with their animals. It helped them avoid the scorching desert heat and also protected them from bandits. Rock art found on the walls of the tunnel revealed another important detail. It showed that buffalo and goats were being raised in the area during that time. This is evidence that the Arabian Peninsula 7,000 years ago was much greener than it is today. People used these hidden underground caves to protect themselves from wandering raiders and attacks from wild animals. What do you think about these discoveries? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and share it. See you in the next amazing video.